Hi, I'm Catherine Comden, Behavior Program Manager at Willamette Humane Society. Visiting the studio today is Hilda Angel, a talented and compassionate Jill of all trades who has recently become certified as a pet loss and bereavement counselor. If you have ever been deeply bonded with a beloved pet and experienced their passing, you'll want to bring tissues along for this episode. Grief is real, and the love of our pets is so pure that their loss can be devastating. I'll be sharing some of my own experiences with pet loss, and Hilda will be guiding us through strategies for healing. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Pets and People. Thank you for joining us, Hilda. I'm very excited to have you here. Your official title at Willamette Humane is
Operation Support.
Operation Support, which means that you do a little bit of everything.
I do. I support the staff and the shelter itself in every single way that I can. I've been there for a very long time.
How long have you been there?
Oh goodness, the first time I went to the shelter was in 2007. And then I had gone back to veterinary care for a couple of years and then came back in 2009 and will never go anywhere else.
Yeah, we love having you there. Hilda is amazing. If there's ever a project that's happening, she is right in the middle of it. And she's done everything from helping staff to change offices and moving furniture and you are the reorganizing queen. She'll come into a space and go, oh no, we need to make this better. People need to feel comfortable here. And that's one thing I've really noticed about you is you have a natural ability to put people at ease in their workspace and personally. You are just a natural healer, I think, in a way.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm thinking that maybe that's one of the things that drew you to the field of pet loss and bereavement counseling.
It truly is. I have a history with animals that goes back 30 years as far as working with them professionally, and have recently, through my 10 years working in vet clinics and then at the shelter for as long as I have, I deal with folks when they're coming to the end of life decisions for their animals. I'm also a euthanasia technician at the shelter, so I'm dealing with folks at the most vulnerable, most painful, most incredibly passionate time of their lives, and it's when they are deciding to and saying goodbye to their lifelong friends.
Right, which is one of the most compassionate services I think that we offer, is being able to offer a service where people can say goodbye and know that their pets are handled in a compassionate way.
Oh, definitely.
And that it's done as gently and humanely as possible. It's a difficult thing to consider doing, and it's not easy to come to that decision. And so do you ever get the opportunity to help people know when it's time?
I actually do quite a bit.
Okay.
My history in customer service, I was right there on the front line and able to deal with people as they called and as they came in. And it's such a hard decision to make. You know, we all wish for ourselves and for our animals that to just go peacefully in the night. And unfortunately, that's not something that happens for us.
Right.
And as good stewards, we need to make those positive and helpful and loving decisions for our animals right up to the very end.
Right. So how, I'm sure there are people tuning in who are struggling right now with that very topic. Maybe you have a pet at home who's elderly or injured or ill. Maybe you don't have the capacity to care for that pet as is needed, and or maybe it's just been a long road and it's time to say goodbye. But the question that I get asked a lot is, how do I know? How do I know when it's time? And I know I've struggled through some of that with my own pets, but do you have words of advice?
Well, there's a few things that you can look at when you're deciding whether or not it is time to euthanize your pet. And one of those things is something called a quality of life scale. And what this does, it's a scale from 0 to 10, and you're looking at things very specific in your pet's current condition. And it's hard to see objectively unless you're able to look at something like this that can aid you in seeing things as they truly are, not as we really wish we saw them. One of those is your animal able to clean itself properly? Are they able to groom? Are they able to lay down without pain? Are bed sores cleaned? Are all wounds cleaned? This is very, very important for continued health and for the animal's pain level.
Right.
Another one of those is hydration. A lot of animals that are infirmed, a lot of animals that are really not feeling well, one of the first things they stop doing is drinking. So a way to check for hydration is to pull up the skin kind of behind the neck and see if it goes back quickly. If it does, you're still looking at a good level of hydration. If it doesn't, what we're looking at is either to apply fluids via the vet or add that to our scale from 1 to 10, whether or not they're actually able to hydrate themselves. Another one is feeding and nourishment. Is your pet interested in food?
Right.
Is there anything you can do to increase that appetite? And if not, if they're just kind of off their feed, that's also something to consider.
Right.
Another one would be, are there more bad days than good?
Right.
We
and that's
know,
a tough one.
Oh,
Boy,
it's one of the hardest.
It is. As you get in there, I went through that with a golden retriever who was my buddy. I always called him my gift from God dog. His name was Sancho, and I had set aside being a dog trainer for a time so that I could be a mom, a homeschool mom, and I had basically said, well, I guess this is it for some time, and I'm not going to be, training dogs, and that's okay with the pets that I have. And then I just said, at some point I would really like to have a golden retriever. And 2 weeks later, he was in the house. And
Of course
I wasn't looking for him, and there he was.
Of course you weren't.
And it was one of those, you need this dog. And so he came immediately into my life and was a huge part of me not letting my career go. Mm-hmm. And so he was very tied to my career all the way along. I turned him into a therapy dog, and he got me back into teaching part-time, and he just was always there. And when he was diagnosed with mast cell carcinoma, it was devastating, and I was terrified. And we went through multiple surgeries and protocols to try to sustain his life and keep him healthy and happy as long as possible. And then the last probably year and a half or 2 years, it was almost every day I asked myself, is it okay? Is this, what's our pain? That quality of life scale was running through my head. And that was a long time because I was giving him, dozens of pills every day. I couldn't leave the house. I was so wrapped up in his care that it became this
sole focus.
It was what I did.
Yeah.
And I didn't leave the house for more than about an hour at a time so that I could, or I took him with me, or I made sure there was somebody there who knew what he needed and when his medications were. And it can be this all-consuming thing.
Well, and it actually, for those of us who are strongly bonded with animals, it becomes a daily routine. And when that routine is interrupted or gone, once the animal passes, it's amazing how devastating and quiet and completely empty your life feels. I actually had the same diagnosis for my dog Zelda, and it was devastating. Working at a vet clinic like I did at that time, I know what the outcome is. And what I wanted to really, really think about, and what I'm sure you thought about for the 2 years, was what am I willing to put her through
Right.
before I call it?
Right, exactly. Because
Yeah.
the whole mission was that of love for
And
the pet.
preserve life at all costs.
Let's see how, good life. We want it
Yeah.
to be as good as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah, and we can do that almost indefinitely, but as good stewards to animals, we really have to keep ourselves in check with things like good conversations with our veterinarians, good conversations with people that we love and trust, people that can see our situation from the outside, because we're blinded. We're blinded by love. We're blinded by the desperate need to keep that love in our lives. They love us unconditionally. It doesn't matter what's going on with my hair. It doesn't matter how I'm dressed or if I even get dressed today. It doesn't matter if I want to be alone. It doesn't matter if I'm not feeling social.
Right.
Those pets are there for you.
Right.
They are there for you no matter what. And it's the most pure, unconditional relationship we have in our lives. We don't have this luxury with people.
Right.
You
That's so true. And I think I know that there's people out there who are listening and watching that maybe they've lost a pet, or they're considering euthanizing a sick animal. And I know people have said to you, well, it's just a pet.
Yeah.
It's just a dog. You can get another dog, or you can get another cat. And I know that that's not true. So there's people that are as bonded as we become with our pets, but that's not everybody.
It's really not. I consider there to be 4 different kinds of people. There are the people that don't have pets, don't understand the need to have pets, and their lives are very complete and full without them. Although we can't understand that whatsoever. It's like, oh my gosh, there's obviously something wrong with you. Here, have a kitten.
No. Hold this kitten.
Yeah, hold this kitten. You'll be
and
cured.
Maybe they don't have that.
There's just no
okay.
connection, and they truly don't understand us. It's like speaking a foreign language. And then you have your weakly bonded owners, and these are people that have pets as a possession, as a yard ornament at the end of a chain, or because the child wanted it, something like that. And then you've got moderately bonded people, and these folks have the animals in their homes. They are they enjoy them very much. They laugh with their animals. They love the companionship, but they're not an integral member of the family. Their passing is hard, but not devastating. And then you've got your severely, incredibly bonded folks like you and I who dread the thought of losing our animals and actually can consume our thoughts when there's nothing wrong with them. That's why when you're in those periods, when you have an animal that is so close to you and it gets towards the end of your life, you're not going to be thinking very clearly. So it's always a good idea, and it may sound a little bit morbid, but it's always a good idea to have those end-of-life decisions made before you have to make them.
Oh, that sounds like a really good tip.
Oh my goodness, it's one of those things where I've dealt with people who can barely even talk. They are so wrought with emotion, and I have to find out what they want me to do with their animal's body, you know, with their beloved pet. And there are some choices that people need to be made aware of, and those are, can you have your animal brought home and buried on your property? There are certain regulations in cities that make that against the law, but it is something a lot of people opt to do. You can have your animal cremated. You can have something called a private cremation, and that's where you receive their ashes back in an urn. And there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can deal with this, and having those decisions made prior to setting your euthanasia appointment
really
is very
helpful.
important. Oh, very
Going
important.
in with your decisions already made, so that you're not trying to make those decisions in the moment of your initial grief, where all rationale is gone.
Well, and I've done a few different things with the animals that I've lost.
So tell me about Apollo.
Apollo was one of the most fabulous dogs. He was incredibly active, a little too active for my taste. And when he finally left, that was one of the hard decisions I had to make. Apollo was only 6 years old and was diagnosed with immune-mediated hematologic anemia. And this is where his red blood cells were being attacked and killed by his immune system. So making that decision for Apollo was very difficult. But when I did finally come to the conclusion that I was not doing him any favors by keeping him alive for my personal selfish reasons, I went ahead and put him down, and I took him into the shelter to do this. And I made my own little tribute, and one of those was that I took his little nose and I made a nose print as well as a little paw print, because this is the very first thing I would see in the morning. I would open my eyes and he would be standing on my chest and his nose would be right here. And for me, this is hanging on my wall, and it's a wonderful way of remembering my little buddy.
So there's lots of different ways we can do tributes. One of the things that I did was put together a slideshow of images to some music that I was able to share with family and friends to remember my dog Sancho and all that he brought and did for us. I know there's lots of different ways people can do tributes. Are there other tips that you can give us about how to move forward in the grieving process?
Well, for us personally, as very strongly bonded people, the way we deal with the stages of grief are going to be different for absolutely everybody. Sometimes the shock and the anger and the disbelief, all those things can go by very, very quickly, leaving us in that depression place, leaving us in that sorrow place. And what's super important for us to do is reach out to people that understand. If you're in pain over this, I will understand that, and I'll be able to comfort and support you. There are websites that you can go to. Some of those have chat rooms, and those chat rooms are filled with people who have either just lost a pet and not quite dealing with it well, and that kind of support's amazing. I've been able to talk to people from Europe and Australia and all kinds of places. We all are the same under the skin when it comes to our vulnerability to that kind of pain.
Yeah.
Another tribute that I recommend, or another thing that I recommend to do, is to reach out and not isolate. I want to stay home. I want to watch TV and forget what it is that is making me so upset.
Right.
I want to isolate from people because of those.
It's very easy to do.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you have maybe family or friends who don't understand the depth of your pain and the depth of your feeling. I remember years ago, I was involved in the behavior clinic at Purdue University and thrown into a position as a pet loss counselor with zero training. I had some handouts that the previous person in that position had. This was back in 1997 or 96.
Oh, wow.
So it was just a really brand new field.
Completely
and I had
unknown.
Zero training in it. And a woman came into the clinic and her cat was extremely ill, and I can't remember, I think the cat died. But she had been caring for this pet since birth. It had some medical issues. She had to tube feed it and make it eliminate. And so she didn't do anything but care for this cat. And when this cat passed, it was so devastating to her that she started saying things like she didn't want to live anymore, that she didn't want to, and this was a married woman in a relationship with an amazing, caring husband. And I was, a lot younger then and inexperienced and had no clue except to know that I needed to get her some professional help. I needed to make sure that she had some resources far beyond what I could offer her.
Oh, definitely.
And we ended up contacting some mental health counselors who put her on a 24-hour watch. And I was amazed by the compassion of the people in the clinic around who really understood it, even then. And so even more so now, I think people are beginning to understand that even though that might not be their thing, they understand that it's a thing.
Yeah.
And they're able to look out and get help. But it's that reaching out, isn't it? It's being able to say,
truly is.
I see you. I see you hurting. And how can I bring hope and healing into your world?
Well, and I can't take that pain away, but I can help you understand where it's going. And one of the unfortunate things, and maybe one of the things a lot of people don't talk about, is one of the reasons this can be as devastating to a certain person and not to another is this kind of pain, this kind of loss can bring up other losses in your
All the other
life.
pain. I've said that for so many years.
And
it's like, here's grief.
Yeah.
Oh, that grief and the grief
I
before.
thought I shut the door on this
thought
one.
we were all
I had
done with the
lost my
grief.
father, and then I lost this particular cat. It was like, where is this coming from?
Right.
And it's not that grief was unresolved. It's just that when your heart strings are tugged that hard, we don't have control of the flood of emotions that are going to come in and attack us. And it is truly an attack because you're vulnerable and you can't defend yourself.
Right.
So being there to help somebody who is dealing with issues way beyond the loss of a pet, which are already devastating, it's very important to know when to refer them to a professional, when this is bigger than I can help with, or when this is bigger than things like the books that I'm going to share
Why
can
don't you
help
go
with.
ahead and show us some of the resources that you brought today?
Well, one of the resources which I absolutely love, and this is for us personally, but it's also for people that have children that are dealing with the loss as well as we are. Children don't quite understand the permanence of death, depending on their age. The fact that they don't have very much experience, and sometimes the death of a pet is the first thing that they're having to deal with. We have something called a remembrance book, and you can make this out of anything. You can have the child completely involved in how they want their remembrance book to look, or a poster on their wall. Keep a name tag or a collar, something that means a lot to that child when it comes to thoughts regarding their pet. But this gives you a whole bunch of places to add our favorite games, the things we did together, where we like to go, pictures of your pet, all kinds of areas that a parent can go through to help their child cope. We actually sell these at the shelter, and they had been there for quite a while, and my curiosity was piqued, and I was like, what is this book all about?
Let's get these out
Unfortunately,
there.
the cover doesn't really describe what is going on inside. And another one that I've found to be completely invaluable is a book called The Loss of a Pet. This is written by Dr. William Seif, and Wallace Seif, I'm sorry. I actually studied with Wallace Seif to get my certification. to get my certification to become a pet loss and bereavement counselor, and this book covers all kinds of things as far as the stages of grief, how to deal with those people that don't quite understand what you're going through. It is a wonderful resource.
Another resource I know you're passionate about bringing to Willamette Humane is a monthly support group for people who have experienced the loss of a pet.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little more about your vision for that?
Well, what I've found in support groups, because I have 13 years experience with different support groups that work for people with addiction, work for people with other problems, I've found that getting together with a common cause, a common ideal, a common need is one of the best ways we can help to sort through our own feelings, share them with somebody else, get insight as to how they've been able to deal with their own losses.
Right, as you mentioned, not be isolated.
Yeah.
So maybe you might be home coping with some of these loss issues and feel like you're all by yourself, but that's
You're
not the
alone.
case.
Yeah.
There are many people who have coped through this and worked through this and will have ideas and how to love you through it.
Yeah. Well, and you're not crazy. A lot of folks say, why am I so devastated by this loss? And it's an incredible loss. You're losing your best friend. You're losing the most pure love relationship you've ever had. And it can really send you into a tailspin. So I highly recommend going through all the resources that you can find. Sometimes things like a hotline to call into aren't manned, so when you really feel that desperate need to connect to somebody, I wouldn't rely specifically on that. I would definitely have a friend who is sensitive to your needs on hand. I will be opening my own website, my own counseling business, and that should be up and running hopefully by the time this airs, and it's going to be healingangel.com, and I'm going to be there to support people that have questions who'd like to do it anonymously. There's a lot of people who aren't willing to even share with their family how deep their grief is.
Right.
And the support group should also be able to help folks with children who don't really know what to say to their kids. They can't really describe what's going on. One thing I highly recommend if you have a pet death in your family is that you do not hide these from your children.
That's right.
Don't hide the details. Don't go into graphic detail, but make sure they understand they are part of this family. Their thoughts behind the death of their pet is valued, and we're not hiding really important information from them. They're gonna know something's going on. They're gonna feel left out.
Right, and another point that I'd love to make, I guess this is your pet parent tip for the week, is to consider how the other pets in the home are feeling about the loss of the one who is gone. I know, again, when we lost Sancho, my golden retriever, we did have him euthanized, and then we brought him home so that the girls, the dogs, could say goodbye to him.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating as a trainer and someone who's interested in behavior to watch each dog experience it differently. One dog was just almost oblivious, just, well, what's this?
that?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, there you are, and
I'm
off we
done.
go, who's got a ball? And the other one was completely moved. And she took a long, long sniff, a deep, deep sniff, and then she went and just pressed her head right into my son, who was in a deep moment of grief, and they had a tremendous time of bonding. And that's not possible for everyone to experience together, but there was a sense of closure as the pets went through seeing the change in Sancho, and then I watched them as they went through the next year change in their relationship to each
The
other.
dynamic
because
changes.
he was no longer the rock that held everybody together. So there's another whole, we could probably do a whole nother show on how how the pets experience the loss. And we are getting close to being out of time. I do hope that those of you who are at home have felt some comfort here, felt some understanding. Hilda, you're just an amazing person. You just bring so much love and compassion to the services, all of the services that we offer at Willamette. I'm so thrilled that you were able to go through this training to bring this to our community, and thank you for that. And I hope that you're able to come down and visit us at the shelter at Willamette Humane Society on Turner Road, and experience the compassionate services that we have for all of the pets and people. And who knows, you might even meet your next #1 fan.
Ready? Go. Okay, let's just Yeah, sounds like that. This is a great student. And then she so funny too.
Hi, buddy. Hi, honey.